How to stay calm when criticized in public. Stoic wisdom. What made Roman emperors never worry about the future. You've been living wrong if you haven't learned this from Epictetus. Marcus Aurelius taught this, and if you understand it, you'll never get angry again. Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into the exact moment when your cheeks burn, your breath catches, and 100 imaginary eyes feel like they're watching. The moment someone calls you out in front of others. The moment your calm threatens to shatter. You're in a crowded place, maybe a meeting, a classroom, or a quiet dinner. Then it comes. A word, a tone, a sharp correction. You weren't expecting it, and that's the point. Criticism that stings usually doesn't arrive gently. It surprises, it embarrasses. It challenges not just your ideas, but your image. And yet there is a path through that moment. A stillness you can enter even as the noise of judgment echoes around you. One that the Stoics practiced again and again from palace halls to prison cells. You might not endure this the first time. The sting might win. But over time, with reflection, you can get closer. And eventually, calm will become your habit, not your effort. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you'd like, post your location and what time it is where you are. It's always calming to see where in the world we're reflecting together. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. To understand this better, let's go back to an ancient lesson from Marcus Aurelius. You walk through a marble corridor just before dusk. The air is cool, the stone beneath your sandals echoes each step. You're not a ruler, not a soldier, just someone searching for peace. A student of philosophy. And like any student, you're learning what to do when the world suddenly points a finger at you. It's strange how even imagined judgment feels real. As if 1,000 faceless critics are always watching, waiting for you to stumble. And when someone does speak, maybe it's a stranger or someone close, it activates something ancient in you. A defense, a fire, a need to speak back. But Epictetus, born into slavery and broken by life's harshness, would have smiled at that feeling. Not because it's weak, but because it's honest, and honesty is a good place to begin. Remember, he said, it's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. That insult, it's just air and sound. It becomes pain because of what you tell yourself about it. Imagine a man publicly shamed in the forum. A speaker interrupts. Laughter follows. But instead of shrinking, the man closes his eyes for just a moment. Breathes and answers with clarity, or sometimes not at all. That moment is what Stoicism trains you for. So tonight you begin, not by rehearsing clever replies, but by softening the need to be right. That is the sting in the crowd, the craving for approval, the fear of looking foolish. And the antidote is not pride, it's presence. You don't control what others say, but you can always return to the breath, to your center. That's where your true response lives. You sit in the quiet of your room, now reflecting on a moment that caught you off guard. Someone's words still linger in your mind, like the echo of a door slammed behind you. You didn't reply. Or maybe you did and wish you hadn't. Either way, something inside still feels unsettled. Epictetus would ask you a simple question: what truly belongs to you? The Stoics were precise about this, not in theory but in practice. Because in the mess of life and the storm of noise and blame, this clarity becomes your anchor. Some things are up to us, he wrote, and some things are not. What is up to you? Your opinion, your response, your inner attitude. What is not the words of others? Their approval, their scorn. That's a hard truth to swallow, especially when someone disrespects you publicly. Your instinct is to fix it, to explain yourself, to reclaim your image. But Epictetus would smile not mockingly, but knowingly, and say, "You're chasing what doesn't belong to you. You can't own how others think. You can't manage every misunderstanding. All you ever have truly is your judgment and your intention. And once you see that clearly, something surprising happens. You get lighter. The burden of defending yourself disappears. The storm still swirls, but you're no longer soaked by every drop. In your mind, you walk a small circle in a Roman courtyard. The sun has dipped low. You're barefoot, focused on your breath, just as Marcus Aurelius once did before addressing the Senate. He prepared not by rehearsing arguments, but by centering his soul. This inner discipline wasn't weakness. It was armor, and not just for emperors, for you too. Because you don't need to control the external to stay composed. You only need to remember what's truly yours. Scholars still debate whether Stoicism encourages detachment or engagement. But maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe the Stoic doesn't run away from criticism but doesn't wear it like a chain either. You pause, sitting quietly now. The world's judgments, loud as they seem, are just passing weather. But what belongs to you, your reason, your dignity, your calm, that is your forever ground. You return to the moment, the voice rising, the eyes turning toward you. Someone made a remark, maybe sharp, maybe careless, maybe designed to sting. And in that pause before you speak, you hear your heart beat a little faster. That pause is everything. Marcus Aurelius once reminded himself, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. He wasn't speaking from comfort. He was emperor, yes, but also a man attacked from all sides, wars on the borders, betrayal within the palace, rumors that clouded his name. Yet in his journal, what we call meditations, he never wrote about fighting back with cruelty or blame. He wrote about taming the self. In that space between stimulus and response, you have a choice. Will you defend your ego or protect your peace? That doesn't mean becoming passive. Stoicism isn't silence for silence's sake. It's about measured strength, responding without being provoked, speaking only when it serves a greater good. You remember what Seneca once said, "A wise man is indifferent to blame as he is to praise." It sounds impossible, doesn't it? Who among us truly shrugs off praise or lets insult drift by, like leaves on a river? But that's the work. And in doing the work, you feel the power shift, not to domination over others, but to mastery of self. You picture Marcus again, not on a throne, but in a quiet study at night. A single oil lamp burns. He is tired, maybe discouraged, but he writes. Not to impress, but to remember he too is just a man. And like all men, he is responsible only for what he thinks, chooses, and does. So the next time criticism cuts through a room, you might try something different. You might breathe first. Feel your feet on the floor. Then ask, is this worth disturbing my peace? And if it is, speak with clarity, not fury. If it's not, let silence carry your dignity like a torch. Because in a world chasing noise, stillness is a rare kind of power. You picture yourself walking away from the scene, not in defeat, but in quiet command of your emotions. The air feels lighter when you're not dragging the weight of other people's judgments behind you. But still, the echo of their words lingers, doesn't it? Words can bruise, especially when they're spoken in front of others. The crowd shifts. Some pretend not to hear. Others look down. A few watch, waiting for your reply. And yet, Epictetus reminds you, if someone speaks ill of you, instead of defending yourself, respond with, "He obviously doesn't know me very well," since there are so many other faults he could have mentioned. It's not sarcasm, it's humility wrapped in humor. It's the refusal to armor yourself against every jab. Epictetus, born into slavery, knew public humiliation intimately. And still he taught that our true possessions are internal judgment, intention, discipline. All else, reputation, applause, even insult, belong to the wind. Scholars still debate how deeply this perspective can be lived. Is it possible to feel nothing at all when wrongly accused or mocked? Some argue that Stoicism calls for detachment that verges on emotional coldness. Others insist it is the highest form of emotional maturity, not the absence of feeling, but the refusal to be ruled by it. And you, where do you stand? When criticized, are you a stone or a storm? You walk along a Roman street in your mind now. Cobbled stones underfoot. The murmur of distant voices. Maybe you imagine Marcus or Seneca walking here too, reflecting silently after a Senate session gone awry. They too were criticized harshly and often, but they returned to their journals, to their practice, to their principles. You return too. Back to yourself. Back to your breath. You know the truth of who you are and who you are not. You don't need to perform that truth for others. Your worth is not a vote. It does not fluctuate with opinion. And so the next time someone challenges you in public, perhaps with sharpness, perhaps with jest, you can let the sting pass through you like wind through a net. You remain. You sit with the silence that follows criticism. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic exit or slammed door, but the soft, aching silence of restraint. And in that space, something ancient stirs an echo of Marcus Aurelius himself, who once wrote, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." You remember the moment again, their voice, the crowd, the gaze of others. But this time, you re-watch it from above as though a calm observer perched on the shoulder of time. You're not erasing what happened, you're re-seeing it. Your heartbeat slows. You think of Marcus not in a golden palace, but in his dim study after a long day of ruling an empire. He scribbles by candlelight, recounting not victories or conquests, but his own failings, his irritability, his impatience, the moments he let pride get the better of him. He doesn't write for praise. He writes to return to himself. And tonight, so do you. The crowd that watched you falter, they're not thinking of you now. Their minds have moved on. But yours stayed stuck, replaying the loop, rewriting your lines. Why didn't I say something smarter, you ask yourself? Why did I let them win? And here is where the Stoic correction lands softly: they didn't win. Because it was never a contest. There is no scoreboard for restraint. Only you know what it cost to stay composed. Only you know how close you came to reacting. That quiet strength, that was the win. Still, you wonder, is this Stoicism too passive? Shouldn't you defend yourself? Doesn't silence suggest weakness? Many have asked this. Some Stoics argued for sharp comebacks, for gentle but firm rebuttals. Others said, let your life be your defense. Over time, the latter tends to outlast the former. A quick retort is forgotten, but calm in the face of insult that lingers in memory. And now, even in replaying the moment, you notice the shift. You're not trapped in the heat of the words. You're tracing them gently like raindrops on glass. You're learning not just how to survive public criticism, but how to transform it into patience, into clarity, into something useful. And as Marcus would say, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That applies not only to actions toward others, but to your reactions toward yourself. You sit up straighter, not defensively, but quietly, like a candle refusing to flicker no matter how strong the wind outside. You return to the idea of the candle, that steady, flickering light in the darkness. A simple flame, yes, but it holds the shape of something bigger. Dignity, stillness, self-command. Criticism tries to blow that flame out, especially when it happens publicly on a stage in a meeting among friends who go suddenly quiet. But Stoicism teaches that your flame isn't fed by approval. It's fed by principle. You recall a lesser-known quote from Seneca: "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more who is poor." Now replace possessions with validation. You realize the hunger to be understood, to be admired, to be right. These are cravings, and they can make you poorer than silence ever could. It's evening in your mind now. A Roman villa courtyard, cool stone under your bare feet. The garden is still. You hear the trickle of water from a bronze fountain. In a nearby room, Seneca finishes a letter, not with eloquence, but with simplicity. He knows the world is unstable. The powerful turn against each other. Emperors fall, friends betray. But his real fortress is internal, not built from arguments, but from alignment with nature. You breathe again. One deep breath. You imagine doing what Marcus did each night, asking yourself, what did I do today? What did I fail to do? What could I do better tomorrow? And in that gentle reflection, you don't need to punish yourself for getting flustered. You just need to notice it. Because that's how Stoic strength is built, not in a single moment of heroic poise, but in the repeated quiet choice not to escalate. Scholars have long debated whether Stoicism encourages emotional suppression. But you begin to understand it's not suppression, it's sublimation. Not ignoring emotion, but refining it. Taking the heat of anger and shaping it into discipline. Taking the sting of shame and turning it into humility. So the next time you feel the urge to speak quickly, when you feel your pulse spike, your jaw tense, you might just remember this: the fire doesn't have to rise. You can let it burn low, clean, and controlled. And perhaps the person criticizing you doesn't expect that. Perhaps they want a show, but you don't give it to them. Because you've made a different choice, a higher one. You picture yourself walking alone after sunset, just as Marcus might have done, along the edge of a Roman camp, the air still warm, boots pressing dust into the earth. Soldiers settle around low fires. There's laughter, quiet arguments, the smell of cooking bread. But your thoughts drift inward. Today, someone challenged you in front of others. Maybe they mocked an idea, twisted your words, tried to trap you. The sting is still there. Not from the content of what they said, but from how it made you feel exposed, cornered. And yet, as Marcus wrote to himself, "If anyone can refute me, show me I'm making a mistake or looking at things from the wrong perspective, I'll gladly change." It's the truth I'm after. You reflect on that sentence. Could you say the same? Could you welcome criticism, not just tolerate it? In the moment, it feels like a test, but in truth, it's a gift. Criticism, when stripped of ego, is simply information, a mirror, albeit a foggy one. Sometimes it reveals truth, sometimes it doesn't. But either way, your reaction is still your own. You pass a weathered tree near the edge of the road, bark stripped on one side by wind. You think of Marcus again, how he governed an empire during plague, betrayal, and war. And yet he wrote of patience, he wrote of kindness. Not the soft, performative kind, but the hard, persistent effort to meet rough people without becoming like them. You pause. Imagine if every time someone criticizes you, it becomes your moment to train. Not to lash back, not to defend your ego, but to see what's left when ego is quiet. A Roman officer once questioned Marcus's decisions in front of the Senate. Instead of responding in anger, the emperor looked at him calmly and said, "Time will show whether my actions serve Rome." That was it. No sting, no defense, just patience and the long view. Can you do that? Not today, maybe, but you can begin the practice. You can catch the spark before it catches fire. You can breathe, observe, respond with quiet clarity even if your voice shakes. That's Stoic maturity, not pretending you feel nothing, but holding the reins of your mind. Choosing how to carry the weight of being human. You sit beneath the fading light, the day giving way to quiet shadows, stretching across a tiled Roman courtyard. The stillness settles over you like a thin cloth, not heavy but present. You think back to the moments when your heart raced, when your cheeks burned under the sting of public shame or unfair judgment. It felt like the room was watching, waiting to see what you'd do. And maybe back then you snapped. Or maybe you froze, nodded, laughed nervously, swallowed the storm inside. But tonight you reflect on what Epictetus once said. If someone speaks ill of you, do not make excuses but reply, "He obviously does not know me well, since there are so many other faults he could have mentioned." It's a sentence both cutting and freeing, not sarcastic, not bitter, but rooted in the kind of self-awareness that only deep inner work can build. When you stop fearing the judgment of others, not because they're wrong, but because you know yourself more than they ever could, that is freedom. You rise and walk along the edges of a fountain, the water catching torchlight in lazy ripples. You imagine a younger Marcus Aurelius just beginning to study under Rusticus, his Stoic tutor. Rusticus didn't flatter him. He corrected him, repeatedly, publicly, and Marcus was grateful. From Rusticus he wrote, "I learned to accept criticism, even harsh ones, without anger." You realize something calm in the face of criticism is not passivity. It's strength trained into softness. It's a form of quiet dignity that doesn't need applause to feel justified. You pass a woman speaking firmly to her child, correcting him in the marketplace. The boy pouts, eyes watery. But she doesn't scold, she explains. Slowly, repeats herself, stands her ground gently. You wonder how many of us ever learned to handle correction like that. With warmth, without pride. Maybe that's where the work begins, not with being perfect under pressure, but with rewiring how we hear disapproval. Whether from strangers, family co-workers, or our own minds. You let that thought settle. The fountain continues its rhythm. The world does not stop when someone dislikes you. In fact, it hardly notices. That may sound cold, but it's not. It's liberating. You are not here to win the approval of all. You are here to live with intention and sleep with a steady heart. And that begins not with praise, but with the discipline to meet criticism with grace. You walk along a quiet Roman road as the stars emerge soft and unhurried, like thoughts you forgot you had. The stone beneath your feet is worn smooth from centuries of sandals, chariots, and echoes. Your mind drifts again, not to the insult itself, but to what followed it. The tension, the questions, the replaying of words you wished you'd said. You pause. Is it better to be praised falsely or criticized truthfully? It's a question that lingers in the writings of Stoic thinkers, never asked directly, but always present. Praise feels warm like sunlight. But criticism, that's the cold river you're forced to wade through. And yet it's the cold that wakes you, not the warmth. Seneca once told Lucilius, a good character when under attack shines brighter in adversity. False virtue is easily dimmed. You let that thought settle in. Maybe the sharpest judgments aren't meant to cut you down, but to carve away the parts you've outgrown. You remember a moment in Marcus Aurelius's life. A general, one of his oldest allies, openly disagreed with him in court. The emperor did not punish or silence him. Instead, he thanked him later. Quietly, earnestly. Because if he was to lead well, he had to learn from challenge, not avoid it. The way you react to judgment says more about you than about the person judging. Do you clench, flinch, retaliate? Or do you, as Marcus, might let the words pass through you, testing them later in private like coins to be weighed for value? You keep walking the moon, lighting your path now. It's not that Stoicism tells you not to feel, only that your feelings are not dictators. They're messengers. And criticism, it's just another message. One that you don't have to agree with, but one you should examine. You think of the armor you've built across the years, the instinct to defend your name, explain your heart, clarify your worth. But tonight, walking in the dust of long-dead philosophers, you wonder, what if the strongest person in the room isn't the one who speaks last, but the one who no longer needs to? You close your eyes, not to escape, but to return inward, where the only voice that truly belongs to you waits patiently for your attention. And it whispers, you are not made fragile by opinion, only by forgetting who you are. The night deepens, but you don't feel tired, not yet. Your body is calm, your breath, even your steps, soft against the stone path. It's as though your mind has been waiting all day for this uncluttered silence where lessons can rise, not forced, but welcomed. You sit beneath a vine-wrapped column, the leaves brushing your shoulders with each breeze. From here you recall something Epictetus taught, not in grand halls, but in small, austere rooms to those willing to listen. He said, if evil is spoken of you and it's true, correct yourself. If it's a lie, laugh at it. There is no rage in those words, no self-defense, just clarity. How simple things become when you stop needing to be admired or even understood. A Roman merchant passes nearby, dragging a cart behind him. His brow is furrowed, muttering complaints about a customer who doubted his honesty. You watch as he gestures toward no one, reliving the slight. But what does it gain him? And then you ask yourself, what have you gained when you defended every insult? Did explaining yourself change hearts or just feed your need to be right? You trace a finger along the cool marble beside you. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that what others say or think is not my concern, but what I do and say. He journaled not for praise, but for purification, to scrub the rust off his own thinking. Criticism is inevitable. In fact, it may be the most predictable part of living. Whether you do well or falter, someone will speak. And the Stoic question isn't how do I silence them, but how do I remain steady regardless? Scholars still debate whether Marcus, in his later years, became too passive, too tolerant of disloyalty, too restrained in addressing corruption. But perhaps they misunderstand. What they saw as restraint, he saw as discipline. He had nothing to prove, only work to do. You breathe in the cool air, imagining Marcus hunched over his wax tablet, not defending himself, but reflecting instead. Am I living up to the nature that reason and virtue demand? That was the only question that mattered. So you ask yourself now, who am I becoming when I meet criticism with calm, not weak, not indifferent, but wiser? And wisdom, unlike reputation, cannot be taken from you. The rustle of cypress trees keeps you company now. The city's noises have hushed into a soft hum like distant waves against a worn shore. You sit cross-legged beneath the stars, staring into the darkened heavens, not for answers, but for stillness. And from that stillness, another Stoic idea begins to stir the discipline of the inner citadel. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The mind is the ruler of the soul. It is unconquerable. That is the fortress you carry inside. A place no insult, no whisper, no accusation can breach unless you open the gate." You imagine the young emperor walking the crowded forum bearing the weight of empire and expectations. A noble interrupts him, loudly questioning a policy in front of others. The crowd quiets. Marcus listens. He says little, responds only after reflection, then walks away. Some call it passive, others call it power. You wonder how often have you lost hours, even days, to a stranger's careless words? How often have you handed over your peace just to win a moment's vindication? Inside you, the citadel waits. Quiet, strong, unshaken. Seneca warned of this danger too. He who takes offense when others speak is ruled by them. Let them speak. Let them shout. You are not their echo. And yet a challenge persists. When public shame strikes, when the room watches, the voice rises, the eyes fall on you, your instincts flare. Defend, justify, attack. But what if that moment is your test? What if the real triumph isn't in the comeback, but in the calm? You breathe deeper now, your chest expanding with a kind of quiet dignity. You are not made to perform for applause, nor to react for approval. Your character is shaped in silence, tempered in restraint. Scholars have long debated whether Stoicism suppresses emotion. But the wiser ones know it, channels emotion, transforming raw feeling into reasoned strength. Not coldness, clarity. A dog barks in the distance. You imagine Roman guards patrolling the wall, unbothered by every sound. Alert, but not alarmed. That's how you train your mind. Watchful, present, but still centered. So when someone lashes out tomorrow, remember this. The blow may land on your ears, but it doesn't have to strike your soul. Let your reaction become your rebellion, your calm, a quiet revolution. The flame in the nearby oil lamp begins to sway gently, casting long shadows across the tiled floor. You let your eyes soften following the slow dance of light. And in that movement, a deeper lesson flickers alive, one that Marcus Aurelius held close throughout his reign. Everything is in motion, and your power lies in how you flow with it. Choose not to be harmed, and you won't be, he wrote. Not because harm vanishes, but because your mind decides how deeply it sinks. You picture him now, not on a battlefield, but in the quiet confines of his chamber. A letter lies open on the desk, its words biting, accusing, perhaps even false. A senator's complaint. A betrayal disguised as advice. The natural impulse would be to defend, confront, refute. Instead, Marcus lifts his pen and writes to himself, "If someone can prove me wrong and show me my mistake, I will gladly change. For it is the truth I seek, not my ego. No storm, no fury, just the resolve to stay anchored to reason." The Roman world admired strength, dominance, reputation. But Marcus knew that true power wasn't found in how loudly you respond, but in how well you listen. Especially when it's uncomfortable, especially when it stings. You shift your posture slightly, feeling the cool stone beneath you. The air carries a faint scent of olive oil and old parchment. You're not in Rome, but you carry the same challenge. He did the challenge of hearing something harsh without letting it harden you. Epictetus once said, "It's not the things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." You think about how a single insult can ruin a day until you question it, study it, and realize it was never about you at all. What makes you flinch is not the sound, but your story about it. Scholars have long discussed whether Marcus's calm was learned or innate. But either way, it was practiced daily intentionally, with the weight of an empire pressing down on him. If he could pause before reacting, what excuse do we have? The wind hums against the window shutters now. A simple rhythm. You match your breath to it, slow in, slow out. You imagine yourself tomorrow hearing something unkind, and instead of tensing, you repeat to yourself, "This does not touch my soul." That is not indifference. That is inner strength. You are not built to carry every opinion. You are not required to answer every voice. The world may swirl, but you, like Marcus, can remain steady in your thoughts, gentle in your presence, and unmoved in your purpose. You lean back now, hands resting gently on your knees. The stillness of the room mirrors the calm you're cultivating within. Another Stoic truth settles into your mind, like dust on a marble floor. The space between stimulus and response is yours, and no one else's. You have power over your mind, not outside events, Marcus Aurelius reminded himself. It wasn't a mantra to feel good. It was a line of defense, a shield forged through repetition. You recall a time recent, maybe even this week, when someone's words pierced too deep. Not because they were true, but because you weren't ready. You hadn't created enough distance between the arrow and your heart. Now you realize the arrow didn't cause the wound. Your readiness did. Picture Marcus in the Senate, surrounded by voices sharpened by ambition and envy. The emperor hears a veiled insult, perhaps about his policies or his temperament. Yet his reply is measured, often delayed. He is not rushed by emotion nor baited into battle. That's not weakness. That's strength with direction. Seneca too wrote of this space between attack and reply. The greatest remedy for anger is delay, he said. Even a moment's pause can dismantle the fire before it spreads. And here's the deeper Stoic insight: your dignity is never dependent on your defense. Silence, when chosen, can be louder than rebuttal, especially when delivered with a calm gaze and an unbothered breath. You stare at the candlelight, now letting its glow melt the tension in your shoulders. Could you respond tomorrow, not with cleverness or pride, but with presence? Could you see the insult arrive, notice your instinct to react, and still wait? It's a practice, one you refine over time. Some scholars wonder, is Stoic control a suppression of passion or a redirection of it? Perhaps it's both. The Stoic doesn't deny feeling. They simply decide which feelings to water and which to let dry out under the sun. You think of your own life, the meetings, the crowded rooms, the people who speak without care. How rare it is to see someone completely unmoved, not cold, just certain of who they are. That certainty doesn't shout. It doesn't perform. It holds its shape like a mountain facing a storm. So when criticism next comes, don't armor up. Don't mirror the heat. Instead, be like the earth beneath your feet, grounded, patient, vast. Let the words arrive. Let them pass. Let them dissolve. Not everything deserves your reaction, but everything reveals your discipline. You let your thoughts wander now, drifting softly like dust through a sunbeam in an old Roman villa. Each breath feels slower, deeper. And into that stillness enters one final test of your resolve, the whisper that says, you should have said something. That quiet pull toward vindication, toward setting the record straight. You know the voice. It comes not in the heat of the moment, but in the quiet afterward, when you're lying in bed, eyes open, rewriting the script of what you should have said. But Marcus Aurelius had a response to that voice too. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You pause at that. Let it settle in. Not to be like them. There's a strength that doesn't chase applause or justice. A strength that simply is. Marcus knew that when you respond out of pride, you don't just mirror the attacker, you let them shape you. Historians have speculated about how many betrayals Marcus faced in his court. Men who smiled by day and plotted by torchlight. He must have known. And yet over and over he wrote about the importance of holding on to one's nature. To be just even when others are cruel. To be patient even when mocked. It is in your power to withdraw yourself whenever you desire. Perfect tranquility within consists in the good ordering of the mind. Can you imagine such clarity to feel insulted, and instead of lashing out, you say, "Ah, here is a test, a gift in disguise"? You can, and you're already practicing it now. There's no need to refight the battles of the day in your head. That imagined argument doesn't serve you. It's your ego playing pretend. The only real moment was the one where you chose restraint. Philosophers still discuss whether Stoicism encourages withdrawal or deeper engagement. But it seems clear the Stoics chose engagement with themselves first. Before confronting the world, they confronted their inner reactions. And most of the time, that was enough. You glance toward the imagined horizon now as if past the garden walls of an old Roman courtyard. A fig tree rustles lightly in the breeze. Somewhere a servant finishes sweeping. Life continues uncaring of your inner unrest. That's the beauty of the Stoic worldview. It doesn't require the world to change. Just you. So if tomorrow brings fresh criticism, let it. Let them speak. You've trained your mind not to fight fire with fire, but to dissolve it in calm water. You've begun to understand what truly belongs to you and what never did. The candle is nearly out now. Its flame dances low, barely clinging to the wick. But it is enough. Enough to light the final thought of this night. Enough to carry one last lesson, a lesson about detachment and dignity. You reflect on how easily people surrender their peace. A single word, a glance, a whisper, and suddenly the calm interior of the mind is torn apart. But what if the mind were trained? What if it became a citadel, as Marcus Aurelius envisioned an invincible fortress? Not through walls or weaponry, but through clarity. Criticism, you realize, is never just about what's said. It's about how you interpret it. You see that now with gentle honesty. Many of the wounds you've carried weren't delivered by others, but by your own thoughts, replaying them again and again. Epictetus warned of this. It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. You breathe that in. Let it drift across your thoughts like smoke. You were never under attack. You were reacting to a story you wrote about what happened. And that story can be rewritten. You imagine Marcus Aurelius once again not on a throne, but walking the dark stone corridors of the palace at night. Alone, carrying the weight of an empire, and yet still finding time to write to himself gently, honestly, unflinchingly. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. You sit with that word, revoke. You picture yourself tomorrow in some ordinary setting. A hallway, a phone call, a meeting. Someone says something cruel or careless, and instead of reacting, you revoke your judgment. You don't absorb the words. You don't craft a comeback. You simply let them fall, like dust off a statue, like water off stone. Scholars still wonder whether Marcus truly lived by all he wrote. But maybe that's the wrong question. The better one is, will you carry these ideas forward, not perfectly, but consistently? You've learned now true dignity is silent. It doesn't argue for its place. It doesn't explain its worth. It exists like the stars above, steady, unshaken, untouched by noise. So tonight, you do not rehearse the argument again. You do not defend yourself in your mind. You close the book. You soften your jaw. You breathe out slowly and let it be. The flame flickers once more, then goes out.